Hey gang, David Gupple, Thinker Farmer here. So today is kind of a momentous day for me. It's really been a special year I've had here at Green Pastures Farm with Greg and Jan Judy and with Isaac Tappenden and Isaac. And I've been wanting to do an interview with Greg and Jan for a while, and we've all just been busy with things. And
Yeah.
so today I kind of wanted to have them on the channel and just ask them a few questions. So all these questions go to both of y'all. First question is, either one of y'all can start. What do y'all think has been the thing that has made y'all successful? Why do y'all think y'all have succeeded?
I'm going to let Greg take the lead, and then I'll throw stuff in.
You bet. So yeah, that's a great question, David. I think it comes out a lot that, when people get started on something, what is the difference between either making it or not making it? And I really feel like number one is passion. And you've got to have an end goal in mind, and that's something I wrote down a long time ago. Was, I wanted to be a full-time grass farmer, and I knew I had to make. And I wrote down the amount of money that I needed a year to replace
the amount you needed.
Yes.
Not just
Because you were working in town.
I was working in town, and so when I quit my town job, I didn't want to live in poverty, and so it had to at least equal what I was making in my town job, and preferably more. And so I started calculating out what was it going to take for me to do that. How many cattle were we going to have to raise? How many sheep? How many farms were we going to have to lease? Because at that time, Jan and I, we didn't have any money, and so it had to be lease. We didn't have any option. We didn't have an option. We couldn't buy anything.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah. So number one is set a goal. Number two is have passion. And if you don't love what you're doing, don't even start. You gotta love this, folks. I mean, you gotta live, eat, and breathe it every day. You really do. And Saturdays and Sundays you don't have to work. Like you do through the week once you get set. But Jan and I did work a lot of weekends.
Y'all worked several years.
We
pretty
did
much every weekend.
Well, we both had town jobs.
And you worked nights too.
A lot of nights. If you're not willing to do that, don't start. And it's just going to take you longer to get. We started in 1999. We leased our first farm, and in 2009, I quit my town job. I was able to quit my town job. So there's an old saying that goes from Alan Nation, and he said, "If you're not willing to give it 10 years, don't even start."
Yeah, you got to be willing to put in the time.
That 5 to 6, 7 year level that weans everybody out. Most people quit.
Yeah,
they will quit.
that's true.
It's tough, folks. I mean, I'm going to tell you, Jan and I went through some very tough times early on, and those are the times I sat back now and I'm glad I went through those.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go through them again.
No.
But you've got to go through that, and it makes you appreciate when you reach the other side.
It makes you a better person.
It really
at
does.
The end of it.
It really does.
How about you, Jan?
If you're a couple, I think you both need to be on board with this.
Yep.
You have to have respect for one another, because it is a lot of hard work. You will, we only ate out one time a month, and that was usually I'd go to the grocery store. They had a deli section that had Asian, and we'd get enough. They gave you enough that you could have 2 meals. So that was our once a month eating out. But when we say we were tight, we were tight. We both had gone through divorces. We owed money. We had decided our paychecks had to go for our debt. The farm had to pay for the farm.
Right. Wow.
And
that's not easy for most people.
We stuck to it. We did go on a short vacation. We lived in our trailer. We went horseback riding.
Yep.
So there was a lot of sacrifices, but you have to have respect for everybody on the farm that's working.
I think Jan hit it at the start where she said, you both have to be on the same page.
That's a huge deal.
And if you're married, or even if you have a significant other, if one doesn't want to do it and the other one does, boy, it's going to be a long road.
Yeah, and that's true, because you went to the holistic training, and I stayed home because somebody had to stay home and take care of the cattle, and we couldn't afford for both of us to go. And he came home, he was so gung-ho and excited, and I said, fine, you do it. And he's like, no, we have to do it.
You have to have her.
And so we sat down, and I gave him 2 nights a week, and we had lessons.
I started teaching her what I'd learned.
We went through the worksheets, and And if you have never done that, I highly recommend kind of getting those questions and going through them. His outlook on the farm was completely different from my outlook on the farm.
And what she's talking about is your quality of life statement, or it's what really gets you triggered up in the morning.
Right,
You know,
and
yeah.
well, then there were things like forms of revenue,
Yep.
Community. I mean, there are these questions, and
Mm-hmm.
we sat down and we wrote them out, and then we talked about what was his.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, oh, I would never think about that.
Yeah.
So I recommend doing some of those worksheets.
Yeah, and you did them together, which
Yep.
meant you had a shared mission
Right.
statement and a shared goal.
Right.
Yeah. So, next question is, what did y'all do differently than other producers around you, and how has that, you believe, made the difference between failure and success? Because you've definitely seen farmers around you.
Yes.
Maybe they're still in business, but they're not making any money. But
Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you, the one thing that I really focused on was doing the complete opposite of what everybody else was doing. And that's tough, because everybody's going to be pointing their finger at you, laughing at you behind your back, talking about you in the coffee shop, ridiculing you, and you've got to have a pretty strong being to you to take that and not
Yeah.
give in. Because see, what you're doing is you do things opposite of what everybody else is doing. You're making them very uncomfortable. They don't like that. And they want you to come back to the fold where they feel comfortable. Everybody's doing the same thing.
Right, because you're threatening
No,
them.
you can't do that. Look at the commodity markets today. Are you going to make a full-time living selling animals? And I mean, sale barns, we need them. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
I don't think you can make a full-time living selling animals at a sale barn with the price of inputs today. And so you've
Yeah.
got to take.
There's
care
no
of-
way starting out you're ever
No,
going to make a living.
you got to do the direct marketing and build your own market. But so I guess my thing is, everybody was toward bigger black. Sorry about that.
That's
David.
okay. Don't worry about it.
Everybody was toward bigger black cattle. That's what you had to raise. I'm like, no, I don't like black cattle. And in Missouri, we have red cattle because we have heat, and red cattle do better in heat. And I found out that the bigger cattle, because Jan and I custom grazed big cattle for 7 years for other people. And we found out real quick, man, these cattle are hard on your landscape.
Yeah,
When it-
plug it up. And,
Plug it up when it rained in the wintertime, you couldn't keep hay in them. I mean,
yeah.
you put a big
They're
ram
not
bale-
easy keepers.
No,
They're
I put a big ram bale out and it was gone in 24 hours. Like, where did it go?
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you make a living propping up these elephants out here on the landscape? You can't do it.
No.
And so luckily, Jan and I met some really sharp folks. One was Gerald Fry. He started talking about, grass genetic cattle.
Yeah.
Smaller frame, more efficient, big gut, not a lot of leg, finer boned. And you know what? The old guy was right. And so today, we start out with 22 cow-calf pairs. And that's the other thing I'll tell you. Save your money and buy livestock. Don't go out and buy machinery. Now today we have a tractor, we've got a brush
Right.
hog, but we didn't start out with that.
Yeah, and that's not the core of what gets things done on a
No,
day-to-day
it's
basis.
livestock. It's livestock. They eat grass and they give you baby calves and they put on weight. At the end of the day, guess what? You can eat them.
That's right.
And you can
Yeah.
sell them to your neighbors to eat in your community. And so it's a wonderful business. It's a ruminant that's harvesting sunlight
That's right.
through a green blade of grass.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize that.
That's right. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
It really is.
Water, fence, harvest solar energy, and grow as many green
Yeah.
leaves across your landscape as possible.
Yeah.
And don't overgraze it.
That's right. So and I'm going to recap, and then Jan, I want your input. What you're basically saying, Greg, you just need to work with nature
Yep.
and follow its design instead of doing what everybody else is doing.
Exactly.
And that's what made the difference. How about you, Jan?
Well, I think one of the things, and I'm not knocking some of these organizations, is we did in the beginning start out with some help with the NRCS. But
Okay.
then we decided, they started putting, we looked into some other programs and there was a lot of rules and regulations, and so we said no. And I think a lot of people get sucked into these programs,
Yeah.
and
You need to
government,
explain what that is.
And an RCS
Yeah,
cost
so-
share
yeah,
program.
cost-
It's a cost share,
Which-
Yeah.
75-25.
right,
Yeah.
well, and I don't know what it is now, what some of the
Yeah.
programs are, which was good because we had zero money,
Mm.
so it helped us start getting
You
some.
needed money
We
to
needed
do
money.
something.
So
to do something with the land.
We needed something to get the
Yeah.
fence in, but I think so many people will only make their decisions on what the programs will give them,
Yeah.
what they can get from the government.
And it holds them back.
It holds them back. And we saw this very much so when we went overseas this past summer to England and Germany, that farmers did not want to make any changes because then they would lose their government subsidies. And I think that doesn't help us.
Yeah.
It doesn't create thinkers.
Yeah, the government subsidies were supposed to help us get off our feet, but now they've become a crutch.
Right.
They
And
can be.
They can be. And I mean, I'm not knocking the programs because
Right.
I do
It
think
helped y'all
you
somewhat,
can use it
yeah.
to help, but I think too many people have thus relied too heavily on them
Yeah.
to help them make a living on the farm.
Yeah.
I think the cost share is a great program for young producers starting out that don't have any money. You know, if you needed some fence and some water, you can get a little help on that. You're willing to leave it in there for 10 years? That's the program. Folks, the government wastes so much money on stuff.
Yeah.
That I don't even want to go in down
No,
that
we're
rabbit
not gonna
hole.
go
Right.
there.
But
But
I
then
tell
we-
you, this programs is meant to get you started. Don't get married to them.
Right. And
Right.
That's what Jan's talking
Right.
about.
And we've got so many
Yeah.
people who are, looking for the next program
Right.
that they're, instead of doing that, spend a little time reading a book,
Yeah.
being a little innovative.
Come up
looking-
with, solve your own problem.
Right.
Find an innovative way around it. I love, well, you mentioned one of Ian's quotes, your friend from Africa, Ian Mitchell Ian's. He said it's okay to use a crutch, but don't get married to it.
Exactly.
Right.
And so that
Right.
was the thing. One more question, y'all. What would you do differently if you could go back, knowing what you do now, or tell somebody that's starting out, what would you do differently?
Well, right from the very start, I wouldn't change leasing land. I think that's a key principle. And I realize there's parts of the country you can't lease land, and that's if you're in a heavy row cropping area where there's a lot of population. Everybody's competing with it, but there are still areas of the United States where there's not a lot of people and there's land available. I would go to one of those areas. I'd establish a little home base, whether it was 5 acres or 10 or whatever, and I would get in that community and I'd start looking around for lease land. That's number one. So I wouldn't change that.
Yeah.
I wish now, looking back, that I'd known about grass genetics right at the very start.
Instead of starting out
Yes.
custom grazing.
Well,
The custom grazing is good. It
Right.
builds
Because that's
equity.
where we
It
got the
builds
money.
you money.
We
That's
didn't
your
have to,
cash
folks,
flow.
we didn't have to go get a loan.
Yeah.
We never got a loan.
Cash
to buy our
flowed your
cattle.
business.
We used other people's money that were paying us to run their cattle to build our base, and then we started buying our own cattle. But we bought some really junky cattle. At the
I
start.
gotcha.
We thought they were great, but they weren't.
That
And
makes
so
sense.
grass genetics, there is something to that. If I had to change it around again, I'd be looking at, I wish I had quit my town job sooner.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now that I know how well this works, I probably could have quit at least 8 years sooner.
8 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd have been, wow.
But you know what? You can't go back and relive your life. And
No, you can't. You have
Jan
to
and I,
move
we've
forward.
been super blessed. We've met thousands of people all over the world, and so I don't have any complaints.
Wow. Well, that's profound to me, Greg, because, I think of how many young people out there are, the way I would put it is the intimidation of new, or the fear of starting out.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
afraid, they're so afraid of failure that they're not going to succeed.
I'll tell you what'll make you succeed. Stay focused, folks, 100% on anything that eats a green blade of grass. Stay focused on keeping all your money in that, and you'll always come out.
There you go. Jan, what would you like to add if you could?
I would like to say I wish we had maybe started our intern program a little sooner, and had it a little more developed in the beginning. We were just we had them living in our home, which is hard, but that's all we knew at that point in time. And then we developed it to 6 months, and we really should have developed it for a full year. But at the time, we didn't really know if we were going to be able to get people to come.
Right.
Right. And you didn't know what a 12-month commitment would probably look like for them or you.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I wish I had changed.
Go for it, Greg.
In 2011, you're asking me, so I'm going to tell you, 2011, I shot my first YouTube video.
Oh, wow.
Compliments of a kid that was here. I'd never even heard of YouTube. I'm like, Nils, there's no way I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Hey, you need to do one. I'm like, all right, so I did it, and I never looked at it again for the 2018.
Right.
We started
7, 8
making
years
YouTubes in
later.
2019. I'm like, what if I'd have stayed with that in 2011?
Wow. Yeah.
What would that have done with our marketing?
Your
you know,
marketing
this
base
movement,
and
this
your
movement,
connections.
yeah, the connections, because we're touching a lot of people now. It's like, man. But anyway,
what would that look like?
That
But
would-
you can't go back. You
I
move
think,
forward.
folks, for people to get aware of what you're doing, you got to have social presence,
Yeah.
social
you
media.
have to.
You got to put your news
I
out
encourage
there.
you to do what you're
Yeah,
doing now,
and-
and I think it's going to help you, David.
I've enjoyed doing it. Well, do you all want to add anything or?
I do. I want to just say thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank
God
you,
bless
David. Thank
You
you,
have been such a blessing, both of y'all.
Jan and I.
Y'all have been like second parents to me. Thank you all so much. Well,
Yeah.
with that, gang, I'm going to wish y'all blessings for the journey and keep it real. Thank you. All right.